As a wise man once said, of course, that would be me, the maestro, Kevin Crane, you must forget about the failures of the past, which, of course, would be last night when you struck out with all the hot chicks at the bar and you got way too drunk and now you got a hangover. You must move forward. You must face the future, which, of course, is Saturday night and next Friday night. So I am here solo this week, your Uncle Dave, off on business. I am here to guide you through Saturday morning. Pound the aspirin, fry up the eggs and the bacon and the sausage. Get some of that lovely grease into your system. And you and I will spend a little time together as I perk you back up. Get your confidence back to go out and do it again Saturday night. Unless, of course, you're watching the Final Four or WrestleMania, but that's up to you. Yes, once again, I am the Maestro Kevin Crane. This is your weekend hangover cure. Sports Frenzy 2.0, the weekend edition, dropping here Saturday morning, April the 6th, 2024. Got plenty to discuss this week. Will miss my brother from another mother, Dave the Conquistador Height, but like I said, he's off doing legitimate, mature things like working, going to conferences, doing stuff like that. The things that people other than me do to make a living. I kid. I jest. It's kind of pathetic, though. So let's move on. First thing, as always, every Saturday morning here on the weekend edition is rock and roll. It is music. Since Dave is not here, you know what that normally means. I'm going to review stuff that he doesn't want to listen to. And that's fine. I get it. I completely and totally get it. He and I, about 75, 80%, I would say, of our music tastes align very well. But then there's that other 20, 25% where he likes what he likes, as I like to call it, the face tattoo music. And I like to go a little bit off the beaten path with some more mellow stuff, some stuff that he would not like to delve into. Now, this one, the album review of the week, this one he might end up reviewing next week. Let me explain this to you. Right now, we're in a little bit of a lull before we get some more big albums coming out as we head into summer. Of course, we know we've got Sebastian Bach coming. We've got Mark Knopfler coming soon. So we're trying to juggle things here, balance things out, give you at least one album review if we can every week. I know last week we cheated and we just did a bunch of songs. But next week I will review Mick Mars, his first solo album, of course, former Motley Crue guitarist. And I'll take the bullet on that one because I have listened to it. I am not overly impressed, so I will spare your Uncle Dave the pain, the misery. So I will recommend to him when we get together this weekend via the internet to set things up for next week's show. I might tell him, why don't you go ahead and review this album that I'm going to give you a decent, solid recommendation on, kids. Even though normally coming in, not one of my favorite artists, not an album I was really looking forward to, but the more I listen to it, I got to admit, damn, it's growing on me. I'm not saying it's the greatest album of the year. It's not going to be in the running for the greatest album of the year. And I have this begrudging respect for Creed, of course, because as you all know, 3/4 of the band Creed formed the awesome, phenomenal Alter Bridge. with Miles Kennedy. But the difference, of course, is that lead man, that lead singer. So yes, I am reviewing Creed's lead singer, Scott Stapp. His latest solo album is Higher Power. And again, probably going to recommend your Uncle Dave review this for you next week. So I'll leave a little bit out there on the table, some scraps, so he and I can give you some differing input, some differing insights on this. But I will say, 10 tracks on Higher Power. I think the one song that really did it for me when it was released as a single was Dead Man's Trigger, the second song on Higher Power. Dead Man's Trigger, God help me, it is catchy, it is fantastic, it is a solid meat and potatoes rocker. Your Uncle Dave sometimes doesn't like it when I say that. Well, you're just basically saying it's a generic rock song. That's not, I'm saying it's a compliment. I am saying when I say meat and potatoes rock and roll, it is a compliment. It is a working man's hard, heavy, catchy song. It might not have the depth lyrically or musically, but it's reliable, it's sturdy, just like meat and potatoes. Sorry, vegans. Meat and potatoes rock and roll. What would be vegan rock and roll, by the way? What would that be? Your Uncle Dave would probably say that would be the Dave Matthews Band, who he hates. One of those bands that we differ on. But there are a lot of decent songs here on Higher Power. I only really disliked one. And that would be, of course, your Uncle Dave has talked about this in the past when we reviewed albums, and I agree with him completely and totally. The forced duets. And this crosses the boundaries from rock and roll to hip hop to rap to pop, where now all of a sudden it's become a trend where you have a song featuring somebody else. Now, I think he brought this up when we reviewed recently the Black Crowes' Happiness Bastards, and he didn't like the song that featured Lainey Wilson, whereas I thought it was a beautiful, gorgeous mid-tempo rocker. So, very creepy in that in the same position on the album. If you look back at our review, listen to it, of course, you can always listen to each and every episode of Sports Frenzy. Whether you want to listen to the sports side, you want to listen to the weekend edition, you can find each and every episode in the archives on Spotify, Pocket Cast, Apple, iHeartRadio, Overcast, Castbox, Amazon Music, Audible, and maybe, possibly, sorta, kinda. I still haven't got confirmation, but I saw something over the weekend that said Google is shutting down their podcasting. So tread lightly if you're going to listen to us on Google. Hopefully you still can. But as I digress, track 5, which I believe was the exact same spot on Happiness Bastards, where this duet, this featuring song came into play. Same thing here on Scott Stapp's Higher Power. If These Walls Could Talk, featuring Dorothy. It's really Dorothy Martin. Her band is called Dorothy. It's just mind-numbing in its mediocrity. And I criticize Scott Stapp for over-singing, and we'll get to that in a minute, because I want to explain when I say somebody's over-singing. There's two different types of over-singing. Scott Stapp tends to over-enunciate Dorothy Martin here on this duet, If These Walls Could Talk, over sings. It's the, oh my God, can't you feel my emotion? Oh my God. The overwrought, overdone vocals, the overcooked singing, I cannot stand. And she actually sounds like she's trying to outdo Scott Stapp on his own album. And it just makes for a very awkward duet that does not mesh well at all. So, If These Walls Could Talk is by far the worst song on Higher Power. Now, a lot of these songs were released ahead of the album's release. Let's talk about Scott Stapp and his over singing, but he doesn't over emote like Dorothy Martin. He over enunciates, and I have made fun of him in the past. The song Black Butterfly. Fly, fly, black butterfly. That drives me crazy. John Bon Jovi does this as well as of late. Just let it flow. You don't have to over enunciate keywords in the song. So that particular musical tick that Scott Stapp has, even though they're two great songs, his tendency to over enunciate at times, not all throughout the album, but on these two songs in particular, Black Butterfly and What I Deserve, keep them from being really great songs. And then there's a lot of the mid-tempo songs you would expect from Scott Stapp, and that was part of my fear going in, was I knew he was going to have 4 or 5 of these mid-tempo semi-ballads. He's not the greatest lyricist in the world. He tends to fall back on songs about faith, and you're not alone, and believe in yourself, and there's nothing wrong with that. But let's try once in a while treading on some new ground, taking a different path. So songs like Weight of the World and Dancing in the Rain and You're Not Alone, When Love Is Not Enough, all fall into that trap. Now, they're all actually decent songs, but they all just hammer home the same message. It is a positive message. So again, I don't want to disparage that, but it's the whole, you're not alone, life is wonderful, enjoy every moment. Okay, I get it. We all get it. We're all supposed to feel like that and think like that. And again, it's a positive thing, and I don't want to denigrate positivity, but change it up once in a while. Throw me a curveball, throw me a slider, give me something a little different. It just seems like it's one or the other with Scott Stapp. It's going to be the hard rockin'. This could have been a Creed song if Mark Tremonti didn't want to keep Alter Bridge going tune, or it's the mid-tempo ballad talking about basically, I was a slug, I was a drug addict, and now I found my way, and now life is so much better. So I'm going to tell you, be positive, be happy, don't be alone. And again, nothing wrong with it, but let's try something a little different. So all that being said, I'm making it sound more negative than I probably should. Hope I left enough meat on the bone for your Uncle Dave next week if he decides to go ahead and review this, so we can at least have something new and different to discuss when it comes to Higher Power. I will give Higher Power a strong 2.5 frenzies. I do recommend it, especially if you're a Creed fan. I don't see why you wouldn't like this album. It was a pleasant surprise. Again, not going to be in tension for our Sports Frenzy End of the Year awards, but a very solid, pleasant surprise from Scott Stapp with Higher Power. Now, the one song I've got for you this week, again, got to keep this in mind, this juggling act I have to play when Dave is out, when the Conquistador has to take a week off. When do I get my vacation week, by the way? I'd like to take a vacation week. Second single from Dark Matter, Pearl Jam. Yes, we all know Dave hates Pearl Jam. So this week, an appropriate time for me to review the song Running. And of course, Pearl Jam has said Dark Matter, the album, is going to be more of a throwback to their earlier angry rock and roll days back in the mid to late 90s. So far, so good. Running has got a nice punk feel to it. I would almost say they're trying to out Green Day to a certain extent, and they're probably doing a better job of it than Billy Joe Armstrong and his boys are. There's a nice wicked bass line at the beginning of Running. There's a short, interesting guitar solo sounding like an alarm, a klaxon of sorts. Now, I love the first single, Dark Matter, the title track from the upcoming album. Running is good. Running is solid. My only concern is that while it's a very solid, very good song, I don't know if it gives me a lot of confidence going forward if this is arguably, supposedly, the second best song on Dark Matter. If this is the second best they've got, again, assumption. Normally the second single is supposed to be even sometimes the best song on the album. A little worried because Running is solid, it's good, but to me, it sounds like it would have been a good deep track on a classic album. That's my only concern, my only worry. Otherwise, Running gets a solid 2.5 frenzies as well. So check out Scott Stapp's album Higher Power and check out Pearl Jam's new song Running. Next week, we will be discussing, like I said, I'm going to give your Uncle Dave a choice between Mick Mars, The Other Side of Mars, or he can jump in here and give you his 2 cents on Higher Power. In terms of songs, we've got a new Mark Knopfler song. I've got a new Kings of Leon I will force him to listen to, just like I forced him to listen to Mustang. New Kings of Leon single. Second one off their upcoming album is Split Screen. Mark Knopfler, third single from his upcoming album, One Deep River, Two Pairs of Hands. I've listened to both. They're both very good. So I'll give you a little teaser for next week here on Sports Frenzy, the weekend edition with your Uncle Kev. All right, so the new nonstop format, get used to it. It is not going away. We've talked about it. We've alluded to the fact there are changes coming. Nothing that should impact you, the listener. But there are a lot of different things going on behind the scenes, especially with our host platform, Spotify, that I am trying to sort through and figure out. So here, producing this podcast, yes, big changes coming over the next month or two. For you, the listener, you will not notice any difference except for, of course, the new nonstop format. No breaks. You can pause us when you want to take a break, but we will not force any more breaks on you like we used to in the past. So let's change things up a bit. Normally, we have a routine. We have a schedule. We go music. We go movies and books, and then we go TV and streaming, leading into Moments of Silence and the Red Foreman Dumbasses of the Week. Why don't we talk about TV and streaming first, and then we'll do movies later. TV and streaming here is going to be pretty short because we've got a lot of stuff we're saving up for next week. Next week, your Uncle Dave and I will full review of season 1 of The Gentleman on Netflix. Now, he's already finished it up. I've expressed my displeasure, my disdain for putting all the episodes out at once like Netflix loves to do. Some of you probably love it. I can't stand it. Because Dave will run through and watch all the 8 episodes, all the 10 episodes, all the 13 episodes, whatever it might be, in a week. And then he'll say, "Oh, why aren't you watching it?" What? Because I don't want to burn through it. I don't want to rush through things. I like to take my time. That's what she said. So I've been trying to watch The Gentleman an episode or 2 every week. I'm old school. I grew up waiting for a brand new episode of Miami Vice every Friday night, or Seinfeld and Friends every Thursday night. I like the structure. I like the discipline it imposes, because then it forces you to find something else to do until the next episode hits. It's not all about instant gratification. So, pacing myself as I have, I will be done with The Gentleman this weekend. And then Dave and I can give you our official review of season 1, and I hope we've got more coming. I have not heard any official word yet on if Netflix has renewed The Gentleman for season 2, if there was ever a plan to go beyond one season. We'll see. We will also wrap up Tokyo Vice on Max. The 10th episode of season 2 just dropped Thursday, April the 4th. I have not watched it yet, so this is not a spoiler. This is a guess. This is a supposition, but I think this is it. Everything that's happened to this point seems to be leading to the end of season 2, with episode 10 being it. Over, fini, done. And it doesn't shock me. It doesn't surprise me, considering this was based on a memoir, a book, a nonfiction recounting from Jake Edelstein of what he went through as an American journalist over in Tokyo, fighting the Yakuza, fighting corruption. It would not shock me. This could be the natural end of the story here at the end of season 2. I am not spoiling, though. This is just me guessing. Again, I have not watched episode 10 of season 2, the final episode of the season of Tokyo Vice. But next week, your Uncle Dave and I will review season 2 in its entirety of the great Tokyo Vice on Max. Don't know what's going to happen with Resident Alien. Of course, on the Sci-Fi Channel, drops the next day on Peacock. Season 1, great. Loved it. Fun, quirky. Season 2, too intense, too serious. We lost all the fun. We lost all the humor of the great Alan Tudyk. Plus, they did that stupid splitting the season into 2 halves. Notice what's happening with Yellowstone right now. Is anybody, despite the immense popularity of Yellowstone, is anybody going to care when the second half of season 5 finally drops? Especially if Kevin Costner isn't involved. You've got to get these things wrapped up immediately. Don't insult the audience. Don't insult the creative flow of the show by splitting these seasons up and having months and months and months, huge gaps. In the case of Yellowstone, it's going to be years between the start of season 5 and the end of season 5. So I'm hoping here with Resident Alien Have not heard again, don't have any inside intelligence as we're getting here this particular week to episode 8. Are we getting close to the end of season 3? Are they going to pull the same stupidity, the same bullshit they pulled last time and stop and then jump back in with the second half of season 3 late this year, or even, dare I say, 2025? But episode 8 of season 3 of Resident Alien should be out there now for you to watch. Season 3 has been much, much better. Your Uncle Dave and I have been telling you this for weeks now. Back to being where it was in season 1. Very funny, very well written, very well acted. We'll just kind of poo-poo and ignore most of season 2. Now we've got new shows we're going to be bringing into the fold here in the coming weeks here on Sports Frenzy 2.0. I mentioned Three Body Problem on Netflix. That one I've got on the back burner. I don't know. I'm into episode 2. I don't know how impressed I really am with it. It's Other things coming up, much more interesting to me. We've got Parish. Just started on AMC. Second episode of the first season will drop as you're listening tomorrow night, Sunday, April the 7th. Giancarlo Esposito is the star of this. I got a little taste of it. I didn't watch the entire first episode, got a little taste. He is a very fussy, particular, anal retentive driver. Looks like he runs a limo service, a cab company, something like that. From what I've read, there are going to be insidious elements that come into play, and we get some foreshadowing of that right off the bat in episode 1. So, do not fret. We will cover Parish. That is new to the Sports Frenzy Weekend Edition TV docket. So each and every week, your Uncle Dave and I will cover the latest episodes of Parish on AMC. Now, I will be adding in, because I still have a free trial of Apple TV Plus. Not sure if I'm going to continue it or not. I would kind of like to watch Argylle when that hits, but I don't know how long I'd have to wait. But out now, the first episode, I believe maybe the first 2. Again, all these different streaming services do things different ways. Netflix drops it all at once. Max, I know, usually likes to give you a couple episodes up front and then go once a week. I like that. So I'm not sure how Apple TV Plus works. I haven't had it long enough to really get a feel for it, but we're going to talk a little bit here in the next few minutes when we get to movies about my obsession with classic detectives. I love mysteries. I love the classic detectives. Lou Archer, Sam Spade, Philip Marlowe. Their modern-day contemporaries. Alex Delaware, Elvis Cole, and of course, Dave Robichaux. Colin Farrell is going to play, it looks like, one of those old school detectives in the new Apple TV series Sugar. That's a terrible title, by the way. I understand that's the name of the detective, but it's a terrible, terrible name. Terrible title. Otherwise, what I've seen, it looks fantastic. It looks like it's right in my wheelhouse. Dave loves this stuff as well. Unfortunately, he does not have access, so sugar will be on me. Pour some sugar on me. Next week, I will have a review of the first episode of Sugar on Apple TV Plus, starring the great Colin Farrell. And then, of course, Netflix has probably dropped every episode of their brand new show, Ripley. Now, if you remember, a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, there was a movie called The Talented Mr. Ripley, starring Matt Damon, Jude Law, and Gwyneth Paltrow, I believe, based on this literary character, Thomas Ripley. Basically a con artist. So I'm going to be interested to see how the new Netflix show tackles this enigmatic character, Ripley. Not sure if the Conquistador is going to want to join in on this one, but I'm going to give it a try. So, next week, possible wrap-up of Resident Alien. Again, I don't know when they're going to end or break on Season 3. Definitely Tokyo Vice, full review of Season 2, possibly the entire series. Full review of The Gentleman, Season 1 from Netflix. And again, updates on our new shows, Parish, Sugar, Ripley. So lots of good stuff coming in TV and streaming. And I firmly believe, and I'll bring Dave in on this next week for a little bit of a discussion point. Right now, with these types of shows, these great, great shows, and I think once you get our reviews of Tokyo Vice and The Gentleman, the full seasons, you'll get where we're going with saying that TV and streaming right now, 50 times better than what you're getting in terms of movies. I mean, it's just the quality level is so much better when it comes to these shows than what you're getting. And I know Godzilla and Kong, the new Empire, that was a big hit last weekend, and I just see the advertisements for it and I cringe. With Baby Kong and the power arm thingy that Kong's got now. When does Godzilla -0 come out? -1, I'm sorry. I got confused. I think the black and white re-release of it might have been called -0. I don't know. But whatever. The one that came from overseas looks 10 times better than this Hollywood dreck in terms of Godzilla in the Monsterverse. Oh, and one last aside, since I still have Apple TV Plus, for the time being, I am trying to watch Monarch. So that might be something else I will jump into on my own in the coming weeks here on the Weekend Edition. I'm worried about this. I am scared to death about this. We're starting to hear rumblings, rumors as things ramp up. Remember the X-Files? Remember for a time, for a season or two, how good and creepy and well done the X-Files TV show was on Fox? Kind of revisited the best of the Twilight Zone and Kolchak, the Night Stalker, with Mulder and Scully. And then, of course, it all fell apart. The standalone episodes were by far the best. The mythology with the black oil and all that eventually fell apart miserably. But now Ryan Coogler, of course, a big-time voice now in Hollywood. Black Panther, Creed, supposedly working on a reboot of the X-Files. They've even, I guess, reached out, the media has, not Ryan Coogler, but they've asked in interviews Gillian Anderson if she's willing to come back as Dana Scully, and she sounds like she's okay with it. But I'm just worried about what Ryan Coogler is going to do to the X-Files. Because if he PCs it up, he does the checkbox stuff, I won't have a single solitary thing to do with it. Because here on your favorite politically incorrect pop culture podcast, we don't put up with that bullshit. We don't want checkbox storytelling. We don't want checkbox PC movie making. And I'll still say, until I see a movie with a white shaft, stop forcing diversity into roles that have already been established with certain actors. And again, this is what I'm worried about with Ryan Coogler taking over a new version of the X-Files. We've got a trailer out for Dead Boy Detectives. Of course, Dead Boy Detectives coming to Netflix at the end of April, based on a DC comic book. Now, Netflix, of course, is working it in as part of the Sandman universe. But those of us who watched the great, awesome Doom Patrol on Max also know that the Dead Boy Detectives made an appearance on Doom Patrol. So looking forward to that. That's going to be another show once we get to the end of April, beginning of May, that is going to sneak its way into our weekly TV and streaming reviews. And then finally, before we move on and do some positive things. Yes, the Clint Eastwood Badasses of the Week, got a couple of them this week in pop culture. The last Matrix movie did not do well. I watched it. I thought it was decent. I thought it was solid. Wasn't great. Wasn't awful. That, of course, would be The Matrix Resurrections. Now, that suffered partially because of the whole day and date thing that HBO Max, back then it was HBO Max, put in for a full calendar year because of the pandemic. And we just talked about Godzilla and Kong. And you notice how much moolah, how much money, how much cash that brought in $80 million in its first weekend. Well, when the Godzilla versus Kong precursor movie came out, that was when Warner Brothers decided, let's put all this stuff day and date on HBO Max. Number one, to prop up HBO Max and get more subscribers. But again, people weren't really flocking back to the movie theaters yet because of COVID. So the new Godzilla and Kong movie, The New Empire, brings in $80 million in its first weekend. The previous movie, because of this whole day and date thing, made about $100 million total. Now, you have to look at the circumstances, because we see how well the second Dune movie is doing, heading towards 280, 290 million will be its final North American take, whereas the first Dune, again, you could stay at home and watch it on HBO Max, eked out about 110, 115 million, I believe. So you have to put it all in that perspective. So The Matrix Resurrections did not do well. Now, you can blame the fact that it was not a fantastic movie. You can blame the day and date and the COVID situation. I don't even think it broke 40 million domestically. But they want to make another one. Of course they do, because they have no originality and can't come up with any new ideas. Brand loyalty, brand recognition. Yeah, those are marketing terms. Those are not terms you're supposed to be using when it comes to creativity and creating stories and magic on the silver screen. brand awareness. Ugh. But yes, a new Matrix movie looks like it is in the beginning stages. No word yet if any or all of the core cast members from the first 4 movies will be back. All right, no book review this week, but an interesting print magazine story. And of course, everything's going digital now, and I get it. Save the trees, save the environment. Stare at a computer screen when you could actually have a tangible, physical object in your hands. Better quality pictures, better for your eyes to read from that than a computer screen. But what do we know, us old school people? We just grew up with all this stuff. Well, it's good to hear that Life magazine is coming back in print as well as digital formats. Of course, Life magazine, one of the most iconic magazines in history, known for its don't mean to keep saying iconic, brilliant and legendary photography, some of the most important pictures of all time emanated from Life magazine. Now, Life magazine was shut down back in 2008, but it is back. So let's hope now with the fact that they've been able to keep Sports Illustrated alive in print format, not just for the swimsuit issue, hoochie mamas, but great to hear Life magazine is back. I am, yes, old school, get off my lawn guy. I love the print format. I have a Kindle. I rarely use it. I prefer to buy my books hardcover, occasionally paperback, tangible. I love the feel. I love turning the pages physically, putting a bookmark in where I want to stop. Sorry, love it. Great memories. I'll never change. Of course, they'll try to force me to. I will fight it to the bitter end. All right, we mentioned positivity here. And I always seem to skip this part. And I know Dave doesn't really keep up with this. So it's really on me to try to force in the Clint Eastwood badasses of the week. And again, like I said, it's taken me over the past 3 or 4 months, 2-3 weeks to really fit in who I had down for the Clint Eastwood badasses of the week. And I promise you, I will try to get better because we need positive stuff. We need good stories in this miserable, awful world that we reside in. So this is one that I let slip. Would have liked to have had Dave's input on it last week, but here in Indiana, our home base, our studio, the Sports Frenzy studios are in Indiana. We had this controversy with a high school student who had an American flag affixed to the back of his truck. And of course, his high school told him that is a violation. Take that flag down. You're not allowed to have it. Don't get me started on the education system. I'll just say simply and honestly, I do not think teachers are heroes. Some are, but when you paint with a broad brush and act like every teacher is a hero, teachers are just like every other profession. Some are good, some suck balls, sometimes literally. And I get tired of the whole, we're noble, we're far, far better than everybody else because we're educators. Then stop trying to force political agendas down the students' throats and stop having sex with your students. How about that? And again, I know I'm picking on a minority of the teachers. But this whole situation, the student's name, Cameron Blazik. Well, he fought his school and won. The school backed off because they should have, because the administrators were stupid pinhead fucking idiots to begin with by bullying this kid and trying to get him to take this American flag off his truck. So now the story gets even better. A company called GCI Digital Imaging out of Cincinnati, Ohio, offered to wrap. And if you know NASCAR, you know what a wrap is. That's basically covering the car with emblems, with sponsors in the case of racing. This company out of Cincinnati offered for free to wrap Cameron Blazek's truck with the American flag. And those of you where Cameron Blazek lives, the high school, St. Leon, Indiana, take pictures of that truck, get the pictures out there, use social media for once for something positive. And tell these overbearing, overreaching school teachers and school administrators to fuck off. Positive stuff on Sports Frenzy. Yay! Also, you know, Elon Musk. Love him, hate him. I love him. I think he gets it, despite the fact he's got more money than God. He seems to understand his place in society. He seems to try to use his money to make things better, to do interesting and dynamic things. Now, a lot of people who did not like when he took over Twitter, now, of course, X, complain and bitch and piss and moan. I don't care. I'm not on X. I wasn't on Twitter. I hate social media. Although I do respect the fact that we all can do a podcast now. And we can all get our opinions out there. Not just the trolls in mommy and daddy's basement. But Elon Musk on April Fool's Day joked on X that he was joining Disney to help make their content more woke. That's the kind of humor we need. That's the kind of insight, fun, creative, snarky insight we need from leaders of industry, captains of industry, people who should be leading this country forward, not backward. Joe Biden! So now we threw you that curveball. We put TV and streaming ahead of movies. Normally we don't do that, but I figured, what the fuck? Mix things up a little bit since Dave's not here. So now we move on to movie reviews this week. Let's start off with what I alluded to earlier. I am normally I'm all in on classic detectives, whether it's in movies, in books. I read the current great mystery writers. I mentioned Alex Delaware, of course, Jonathan Kellerman, Dave Robichaux, written by the great James Lee Burke, John Sanford with the Prey series, and of course, Virgil Flowers, Robert Crais, and the awesome Elvis Cole and Joe Pike novels. But I've been delving back into the classics lately. Now, you'll recall, last year I reviewed Liam Neeson as Marlowe, a movie that hit theaters, didn't really make much of an impact. And then I've discovered some novels that have been sanctioned and approved by the Raymond Chandler estate, involving the classic detective Philip Marlowe. And I will have a new book, came out in 2023, a new book review for you coming up in a couple weeks. Another Philip Marlowe mystery. But I'll leave you on pins and needles about that one. Like I said, that's probably coming up in 2 weeks. But I couldn't help myself. Again, I've been obsessed with this stuff here recently. Didn't want to watch anything new. Sometimes I want to watch something familiar and comfortable. I don't want to have to pay a ton of attention to a new storyline, a new plot. So I pulled out my old DVD of Marlowe. No, not the one I just reviewed here within the last year, featuring Liam Neeson. This Marlowe goes back to 1969, I believe, with the awesome James Garner, of course, from the Rockford Files, Brett Maverick. James Garner giving us his take on the classic Raymond Chandler detective Philip Marlowe. This particular movie version is based on the Chandler book, The Little Sister, which I have read, but it's been a long time since I actually read it. Bringing Philip Marlowe into, at that point, modern times, with the counterculture movement, the hippies. This movie featured a lot of big stars for the time. Of course, I mentioned James Garner does a great job of playing a world-weary Philip Marlowe. Likeable, relatable, trying to do the right thing. But of course, we have Bruce Lee making an appearance. I believe from what I've read, this was the only movie where Bruce Lee played a villain. And I'm not going to spoil anything for you, but you've got to see. You could tell the charisma that Bruce Lee had, but the physical prowess in one scene in particular is just astounding, as he basically destroys Philip Marlowe's office with his own 2 hands and his 2 feet. Speaking of 2 feet and a whole lot more, even though right now she is a raging nut job, back then, the gorgeous and supremely talented actress and dancer Rita Moreno plays a very integral, vital role in this mystery, and she is fantastic. And this movie is a wonderful, wonderful representation of how all the different characters in the Raymond Chandler mysteries, you couldn't sell anybody short. It wasn't all just about Philip Marlowe. Yes, he was the center of this somewhat corrupt moral universe out on the West Coast. Sound familiar? But the characters orbiting around him in each and every case were fascinating in and of themselves. And then Carol O'Connor, yes, Archie Bunker, plays a police lieutenant. I believe he was a lieutenant. Frustrated with the fact that Philip Marlowe keeps showing up in the case he's trying to solve and is always one step ahead. So you have to love this genre in order to get a movie like this. If you're not into detective movies, if you're not into mysteries, don't bother. I'm sure there's people out there who love romances, and they would be the first ones I would go to if I ever, don't know why, if I ever wanted to watch a romance. And let them tell me what to look for in a good romance on screen. I'm the guy to come to when it comes to the film noir, hard-boiled detective mysteries. I got the pedigree. Trust me, kids. So, if you do like your detective novels, your detective movies, great mysteries, of course, this is a story time. This is a movie I've watched before. I think I've given you enough background to make it a legitimate story time. Marlowe, starring James Garner, based on The Little Sister. 3.5 Frenzies, an outstanding murder mystery. Interesting to see again how Philip Marlowe gets dropped into the hippie culture and how he handles it. Extremely well acted, extremely well done movie. So let's move up to modern times for our other film review this week. By the way, next week, if you listen to last weekend's weekend edition, and why didn't you? You know that Dave and I were planning ahead, so you know that next weekend we will review the vastly successful reimagining on Amazon Prime of Roadhouse. This version, of course, starring Jake Gyllenhaal, the original classic featuring Patrick Swayze and Kelly Lynch. Oh, Kelly Lynch. But that's a streaming movie. So why not review this week another streaming movie? Not necessarily one from the theaters. This has been out for a little while on Paramount Plus. And I've been meaning to get to it. One of those movies that I started, watched about 20 minutes, said, okay, I can tell I'm going to like this, but I don't have the time right now. So put it on the back burner, come back to it when I've got time. Found the time this past week for Finestkind. Finestkind, again, another movie with a phenomenal cast. Tommy Lee Jones, of course, Jenna Ortega, the it girl right now from Netflix's Wednesday and the latest Scream movies. And then who I consider one of the most overlooked and underrated actors today, Ben Foster. Finestkind is about the struggles of fishermen in the Northeast, the Boston area, New England. I don't want to give too much away because this story, written by Brian Helgeland, also he directed this movie. Brian Helgeland is a critically acclaimed, award-winning writer. Won an Oscar for L.A. Confidential, a phenomenal mystery. Of course, starring Kevin Spacey. Yes, in real life, a scumfuck, but one of our best actors if you can set his personal life aside. But you would have to look it up. Go on Wikipedia. I know you can't really trust Wikipedia 100%, but in something like this, you can trust them as they run down Brian Helgeland's movies that he has either written and directed. He is a true talent. And it comes through here in Finestkind. So, Finestkind, again, about fishermen in the Northeast. You've got a pair of half brothers, same mother, different fathers, who reconnect at the beginning. The younger one is very successful in terms of his college studies, been accepted to go to Boston University Law School, his older half-brother, Ben Foster, basically runs fishing boats with his crew, his handful of guys that he's had with him for a long time, that he trusts, that he knows he can take out with him for a week at a time to get the job done. But again, I mentioned Brian Helgeland likes to write mysteries, likes to write stories involving a lot of dramatic twists and turns, many of them violent. So as the younger half-brother is trying to figure out his path in life, and he gravitates towards his older half-brother, starting to think about leaving behind the academic world, leaving behind his chance at going to law school, things get complicated. And let's just say one bad decision leads to another bad decision, leads to another bad decision. And while the last 5 minutes of the movie are very it's too feel good, considering how intense and how pessimistic the rest of the movie has been. I didn't like the last 5 minutes and how he felt like he had to give us an upbeat ending. And again, I don't want to spoil anything for you. Just trust me. The upbeat ending does not fit with the rest of the movie. But again, Tommy Lee Jones, great in everything he does. I love Ben Foster as well. The rest of the cast, hit and miss. But this is a very well done thriller where, again, Brian Helgeland does a great job, as always, of delving into the bad choices people make and the consequences and the repercussions, sometimes deadly, that those bad choices bring to not only the person who makes the choices, but the people around said person. Finestkind is a very, very good movie. I give it a solid 3 frenzies. So there you go. 2 very, very enthusiastic recommendations this week. 1 new movie, Finestkind, on Paramount Plus. And I do believe if you don't have Paramount Plus, it's coming out on DVD within the next week or two. And I believe you can also buy it at a reasonable price through somebody like Fandango at Home or Amazon. And then, of course, going old school with Marlowe, the James Garner Marlowe. 2 great movies you should check out this weekend. And then, of course, again, next week, Roadhouse. And I mentioned how it has been very successful for Amazon. First 2 weekends, 50 million viewers across the globe. That is an impressive number. Now, one quick note on movies before we move on to Moments of Silence. You guys know out there that the Conquistador and I love, love, love Kevin Smith. We've seen all of his movies. Well, I'll admit I probably either flushed it out of my brain pan or didn't see it. I don't think I watched Jersey Girl. I'll admit that. And I don't think I watched Tusk. But most of them. The Askew-universe, we've seen all of it. Jay and Silent Bob and Dogma, all the Clerks movies. Kevin Smith has got a new film. Did not know this was coming. Supposedly already completed, finished. The 4:30 Movie is the name of the movie. He has made a deal with Saban Films, who he's worked with in the past, for distribution in theaters later on this year. And of course, it sounds like he is going to do what he has done for his last couple movies. He will go out on tour, taking the movie with him, playing it for audiences, and then, of course, discussing, doing Q&As with his fans before and after the film. So looking forward to the 4:30 movie from Kevin Smith. From what I can dig up, sounds like a very cool coming-of-age movie involving a bunch of teenagers, a bunch of kids who like to figure out a way to sneak into the local movie theater. And of course, Kevin Smith, we know, is a huge cinephile. He is a massive movie fan. Wouldn't you have to be making movies, to be directing and writing them? But this is kind of his love letter to the movies. Everybody else seems to do it. Steven Spielberg did it recently. And if there's anybody who can do it and do it right to speak to us, it's Kevin Smith. All right, let's move on to Moments of Silence. A phenomenal actor who we lost over the last week, Louis Gossett Jr. Hasn't really done much in a while, but for my generation growing up throughout the 80s and the 90s, one of the most recognizable, best, dependable actors out there has passed away. And then tragedy. It's always a tragedy when someone so young loses their life because they had so much left, so much time on the table where they could have made an impact on other people's lives. For those of us who are 2/3 of the way through our lives, to see somebody who's only 1/3 of the way through their life pass away is just, it's sickening, it's heart-wrenching. Now, you know, we love The Boys on Amazon here, and of course the spinoff Gen V, very good first season, very successful first season, just getting ready to ramp up things. I believe they were getting ready to do a table reading to start up with season 2. One of the main stars of Gen V played Andre. Chance Perdomo died in a motorcycle accident. And again, I don't know what else to say. It's just, anytime somebody passes, with very few exception, of course, a dirtbag, a scumbag, leaves this earth, we're better off for it. But for the most part, when anybody leaves this world, the time that they could have had left, if the illness, if the accident, if the tragedy had been prevented, who knows what else they could have contributed. A comment, a smile, something to make somebody else feel better. And Chance Perdomo had a long, long life ahead of him, and unfortunately, he has passed away. Insignificantly in comparison, but Gen V has, of course, suspended production on season 2. And then finally, you know, we hate Saturday Night Live now. Saturday Night Live has not been funny for well over 10, 15 years. Sorry. Younger people might think it's funny, might like it. It sucks balls now. It's not funny. Nobody cares about the cast members. But back in the day, Saturday Night Live, of course, had a magnificent run. For almost 30 years, it was funny, and it generated some of the greatest actors, actresses, and comedians we have seen as they graduated from the cast of Saturday Night Live into motion pictures. Of course, Bill Murray, Eddie Murphy, Will Ferrell, just to name a few. But what people don't remember is that while Saturday Night Live was kind of like the AAA, using a baseball analogy, the AAA affiliate, and then the not ready for prime time players would graduate to movies and become big stars, the major leagues. Where did Saturday Night Live get their talent from? One of the prime places that they got their comedians from was SCTV, Second City Television. And one of the founding members of SCTV was Joe Flaherty. Now, he did not go on to become a star. He did not become a big recognizable face. Didn't become a matinee idol. Unfortunately, the one thing in modern pop culture he's probably most well known for is Happy Gilmore, with, again, Adam Sandler, another SNL graduate who went on to magnificent levels of fame. Joe Flaherty from Second City TV, most well known for Happy Gilmore, as he was the heckler who kept calling Happy Gilmore jackass, jackass. Rest in peace, Joe Flaherty, Chance Perdomo, and the great Louis Gossett Jr. So, of course, now it is time to pivot. Can't do it as well as the Conquistador, but as Ross Geller said in that classic episode of Friends, pivot, pivot. From sadness and sorrow to stupidity and idiocy. Yes, it's time for the Red Foreman Dumb Asses of the Week, a sports frenzy tradition for over 2 decades. Before we get there, though, one final thing for next week, a teaser for next week. We've talked about some of the music we're going to review, TV shows, streaming shows, movies, but do not forget, I will be recapping the 2-night wrestling extravaganza, WrestleMania. I will have my insights, my predictions. I'm already on the record. I've been on the record for a year saying that Cody Rhodes is going to beat Roman Reigns for the Universal title. But there are a lot of other storylines involved here, so we will see what happens. As you're listening to this Saturday morning, April the 6th, tonight is night 1 with the big tag team match that will decide whether or not there are bloodline rules in Sunday night's epic Universal title matchup between Rhodes and Roman Reigns. But I digress. Let's move on to the stupid, idiotic people that we just hate. Some of them already on the sports frenzy plane of doom. Some of them trying to fight for seats. Some of them just one-offs. They're not even worth trying to put them in line. Give them a boarding pass. Of course, those of you who don't understand, when we talk about the sports frenzy plane of doom. Who would we put on a jet airliner and just drop it in the middle of the ocean and let them fend for themselves and fight it out? And if some of them die, oh well, the world would be a better place. Sorry, you might not like that. That's why we're politically incorrect. There are some nasty, awful, despicable human beings on this planet, in this world, that just need to go away permanently. For the second week in a row, to start off the Red Foreman Dumbasses of the Week, here on April the 6th, 2024, I cannot believe this has come out of left field the last couple weeks. But this guy, to quote Joe Flaherty, who we just talked about, is a jackass. Mexican President Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador. Of course, last week, he announced that he was basically blackmailing the United States. Oh, we can help you fix the border crisis if you give us, $20 billion a month. Then maybe we can do something about it. So now what's he do this week? He turns an American tragedy, the Baltimore bridge collapse, the Francis Scott Key bridge tragedy. Thank God more people were not killed or injured. It could have been a lot worse. But this idiot Mexican president, yes, I don't care if he's running an entire country, he's an idiot, he's a dumbass, takes this tragedy and says this is a perfect example of how the United States mistreats migrants because there were construction crews on the bridge. Some of the workers were Mexican migrants. So because they were forced to take a job in construction working on a major bridge in the United States, because I'm sure they weren't getting paid anything. We all know that the construction workers don't get paid jack squat, right? With the unions they've got behind them and all that. Safety regulations. This had nothing to do with safety regulation failure. This was a tragedy, an accident, of course, with the cargo barge knocking out the support. And this is despicable. I mean, this goes beyond being a dumbass. This man is an evil, despicable human being. For him to say this is an example of how we mistreat migrants here in the U.S., here's an idea, Mr. Obrador. If we're such a terrible country and we're so awful and bad in how we treat people, why don't they want to stay in Mexico? You know why? Because you run a dumbass country. You don't do what you need to do to make your people healthy and wealthy and happy. That's why they still want to come across the border to the United States. Despicable, disgusting, nasty dumbass. But we've got plenty of dumbasses here in America, too. And of course, especially in Hollywood. Have you guys heard about this whole this whole fight, the nastiness going back and forth between Rebel Wilson and Sasha Baron Cohen? Because, of course, Rebel Wilson has got to sell books because she just put out her memoirs here recently. And one excerpt, one chapter in particular, seems to have caught everybody's fancy, where she singles out Sasha Baron Cohen for a movie that nobody watched. The Brothers Grimsby, nobody watched that movie. But she says she was sexually harassed by Sasha Baron Cohen, and he refutes it, he disputes it. And then there's this disgusting stuff about him wanting her to stick her finger up his butt. And here's where I say we draw the dumbass line. How about we just take this feud and we say nobody gives two rip shits about Rebel Wilson or Sasha Baron Cohen? They are both minor league, pathetic, untalented celebrities. What has Rebel Wilson done? She was in Bridesmaids. That was an ensemble cast. It wasn't like she was the star. You take away Borat, which I thought was one of the most overrated comedies of the last 20-25 years. What has Sasha Baron Cohen done? Ricky Bobby. That's about it. How about they both just go away? They can each stick fingers up each other's butts. Who cares? You're both overrated dumbasses. Go away, both of you. Now, normally I like when people rebel. And I like when people say, let's start a new campaign for president or for political office, and let's get away from the Republicans and let's get away from the Democrats. Because they're both poisonous parties, which I 100% agree with. But we also know the way the system is rigged, a third party or an outsider has very little chance to succeed. So, regrettably, despite the fact he is an Army veteran, and of course I respect and admire anybody who served in our armed forces, but there is a Texas Army veteran and a 7th grade math teacher. Right there, negative points for that. Although, I guess math teacher, not so bad because everybody's trying to say math is racist, which is just, could be up for most ignorant, dumbass statement of all time. But a Texas Army veteran and a 7th grade math teacher legally changes his name in his bid to run for president. Again, legally changed his name to literally anybody else. While I respect, again, the service to our armed forces, to legally change your name to try to make a point about the fact that our political system sucks balls. Sorry, that's the third time I think I've said that in this podcast. I need to stop and move on to a different type of sexual entendre. But to literally, legally change your name like this is a supreme, idiotic, dumbass move. It does not solve any problems. It's a showboat move, and now you're stuck with the name literally anybody else. So, heart's in the right place, but in the end, a colossal dumbass move. Aren't we? Can we? Another guy. We talk about Rebel Wilson, Sasha Baron Cohen. Go away. How about this idiot Dylan Mulvaney, this trans influencer? And again, I am tired of 5%, 10% of the country having such an amazingly impactful influence in terms of media coverage when it's not warranted. Nobody likes them. Nobody wants them. Live your life. Shut the hell up. Nobody's saying you can't be what you want. but for the fact that you, as a small minority of the population, keep forcing yourself on the rest of us like you are half of the population is just stupid and insipid. And of course, we know Dylan Mulvaney basically destroyed Budweiser, Anheuser-Busch, Bud Light for months and months and months. But of course, the media will keep shining a spotlight on this pinhead. And of course, he won't shut up, she won't shut up, they won't shut up, whatever the hell stupid ass pronoun Dylan Mulvaney wants to go by. Now, the brilliant idea that Dylan Mulvaney has is, I love Legally Blonde. Of course, we know, remember Legally Blonde with Reese Witherspoon. Very successful pair of movies. No, I didn't say pair of boobies, I said pair of movies. Dylan Mulvaney would love to make a trans version of Legally Blonde. Of course, he, she, they, it would want to. Because, number one, nobody has any original ideas. Here's an idea. Come up with a new trans movie or a play. Again, I don't care. Be who you want to be. And if you want to put together an original screenplay or an original play, do it. Do it. But stop taking established characters and trying to turn them and twist them to make them fit your agenda, dumbass. Now, I'll admit, this one, I don't know who the dumbass is, but it's just one of those, there's got to be a dumbass in there somewhere segments. Murrieta PD in California got in trouble because, of course, California has all these ridiculous, stupid, bizarre, weird laws. They will not allow you to show mugshots for nonviolent suspects because they need to, quote, protect the privacy of nonviolent suspects, unquote. Okay, I'm not a lawyer. I only play one on a podcast. So I will give California the benefit of the doubt here. And I will say, okay, nonviolent is the key part of this. I get that. I do. We don't need to throw everybody's mugshot out there, especially if it's minor offenses. I would like a little bit more clarification, misdemeanor, felony, but probably asking too much from Gavin Newsom, that genius out in California. And this is the point in every podcast episode, of course, where the conquistador would say, we were promised that California was going to fall off the West Coast. So Murrieta, California Police Department decided to find a new creative tack to get these headshots, these mug shots out. They took Lego heads with various expressions and superimposed them over the faces of the suspects in order to comply with California law. Now, here's the thing. They didn't get in trouble with California, but Lego nicely, politely asked them, and they, very civil discourse here. How about that, kids? Civil discourse between Lego and the Murrieta PD. Lego said, hey, while we respect the fact you're putting our product out there, it's not in the, and I'm paraphrasing, not in the light that we would like it. Plus, it's a trademark infringement. Please stop. No suit, no suing, no lawsuit, no nothing like that. Just very smart on Lego's part. Just say, hey, appreciate the shout out, but we don't like it. Please stop. Marietta PD says, cool, we get it, fine. We won't do it anymore. So I'm telling you, somewhere in here there's a dumbass. Somewhere in here there's probably it's the Marietta PD for pulling this stunt and not realizing that they were either going to get nailed for trademark infringement or they were going to piss off Gavin Newsom and his cronies for trying to circumvent California law. Then finally, the sixth and final Red Foreman Dumbass of the Week here on April the 6th, as we get ready to send you off for Saturday night. I would tell you don't party too hard, learn your lessons from the night before, but we know you won't. Marvel doesn't get it, just like you, because you're going to go out and do the same damn thing tonight you did last night, with probably the same damn result. But Marvel does the same thing. Marvel doesn't get it. They don't understand when they get a negative result, maybe we need to change our way of thinking, our marketing, what projects we greenlight and which ones we don't. We have seen how the Marvel Cinematic Universe has collapsed over the past few years, ever since Disney took over Marvel Studios. And we talked a little bit ago about Elon Musk and his April Fool's joke. Well, unfortunately, every good joke has a shred of truth in it. And so Elon Musk's joke on X about joining Disney to help make their content more woke, they don't need any help. We've seen the Eternals with a gay couple. We've seen how they have been forcing female superheroes down our throats and how it has failed for them and failed miserably, especially with their latest movie, The Marvels, an absolute train wreck disaster. You don't understand your market. You don't understand your audience. It's fanboys, not fangirls. Yes, there are fangirls out there, and they're awesome, and they're great because they get it. But unfortunately, they are still a minority of the comic book audience. Hence and ergo why your movies are flopping. Because nobody wants to be preached to when they go see a comic book movie. They want to have fun. They want to be entertained, despite what that pinhead, Martin Scorsese, and that other pinhead, Christopher Nolan, say. We want to have fun at the movies. Not be bored to tears with Oppenheimer. Or be subjected to Robert De Niro cursing and swearing as a gangster for 3.5 hours. We want to see superhero movies that are well written, that are well done, that are fun. Like what Marvel used to do. So you would think, again, they'd learn their lesson. Nope. Nope, 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 nope. So they, of course, are rebooting the Fantastic Four yet again. And we talked about it, and I said outside of the fact that Mr. Pascal needs to shave his mustache for the role of Reed Richards, I like the cast. I really, really like the cast. And I like the cast precisely because it's not PC, like the last incarnation of the Fantastic Four was. Well, slow your roll there, Maestro. You knew they were going to get you at some point. an actress who I know. She's won awards. People loved her in Ozark. She won multiple Emmy Awards for that role. She was also in a show that I love, The Americans. I just don't like her as an actress. Julia Garner has been cast as, believe it or not, the Silver Surfer. Yes, a female Silver Surfer. And of course, Marvel Studios quick to point out, but it's from the comic books. But it's from the comic books. Of course, it's from the comic books because Marvel Comics went woke 15 years ago. So you can find a female version of every superhero in the Marvel Universe. So, yes, of course, you can say, see, we're getting it from the source material. How about you go back pre-woke Marvel and tell me where you find a female Silver Surfer? So, hate the actress, hate the PC crap Marvel is still pulling on all of us. It doesn't look like, outside of Deadpool, I'll be going back to the movies to see a Marvel movie anytime soon. But that is going to do it for the weekend edition. Hope you enjoyed it. Here on April the 6th, 2024, the Conquistador, Dave Height, your Uncle Dave, will be back next week. I've already mentioned to you what to look forward to. It is going to be an extravaganza with movies, WrestleMania recap, multiple season wrap-ups in TV and streaming, and I'm sure he's read 43,000 books in the last 2 weeks. You know how he is. When I was talking about how I like to savor and enjoy whatever I watch or consume or read and take my time, he just goes boom, 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 boom. Got to get it done. Got to get it done. Move on to the next one. And of course, there's something to be said about that being noble, in that he will end up reading far more books than me and seeing far more movies than me. But did he really enjoy them? Or was it just fast food to him? Whereas to me, it was a fine delicacy, a wonderful 6-course meal. I am the Maestro, Kevin Crane. Hope you enjoyed Sports Frenzy's weekend edition. Check out the sports edition coming up this Thursday morning. Otherwise, we will talk to you in 7 days for more politically incorrect pop culture commentary. See ya.